Hello everyone, welcome to Untie the Spirit. My name is Robin Kitchen. I am the manager for learning and growth and Eden educator for Sherbrooke and Central Haven. So my role is education in our communities. I've worked at Sherbrooke for 25 years and I'm so excited to be able to lead you through the Untie the Spirit course. Untie the Spirit is a course focused on supporting people who are living with dementia to experience success and well-being. Untie the Spirit is based in the Eden alternative philosophy, which of course is our guiding philosophy at Sherbrooke and Central Haven. And the Eden alternative teaches us that we need to abandon the institutional or medical model that has traditionally been the focus of long-term care homes. And in its place, we need to work to create home, a healthy community where people can live full and abundant lives and experience well-being, which is that contented state of being that we all want to feel. There are 4 modules in the Untie the Spirit course. Module 1 is the one we're focusing on today. We need to shift our thinking about dementia. We need to change our minds about people whose minds have changed. A great quote from a great mentor of ours named Dr. Al Power. Module 2 is where we need to start shifting our focus to enhance well-being for each elder. Dr. Thomas from the Eden Alternative describes well-being as the most valuable of all human possessions. Module 3 is where we're going to be focusing on being good detectives and good interpreters in our care and support of persons who are living with dementia. We need to understand that communication is greatly impacted by cognitive change and that elders express themselves and their needs through their actions and responses. To be spirit lifters, we need to understand what is being communicated to us. And then Module 4 is all about our approach, and approach is key. Our approach greatly impacts the success and well-being for people who are living with dementia. And so to get started, we are actually going to recognize all of the great leaders and inspiring mentors from whom we've learned to create this course for you. So this is Naomi Fail. She is probably one of our earliest teachers. We learned about Naomi through GPA, or Gentle Persuasive Approaches education. Naomi worked as a social worker throughout her life, and she committed her career to supporting people who are living with dementia. And she is the founder of validation therapy, which is the process of communicating with someone who has dementia by validating and respecting their feelings in whatever time or place is real to them, even though it may not correspond with our here and now reality. Validation is a really respectful approach and based in compassion and understanding, and it is our go-to strategy at Sherbrooke and Central Haven when we are supporting people who are living with dementia. Naomi has another great message. She says, validation won't cure dementia, but it will help restore feelings of self-worth and respect. And so many great messages to learn from Naomi, and we will talk more specifically about validation therapy later on in this course. Untie was the founder of the Pacific Institute, and the Pacific Institute is an organization that really teaches people how to change their thinking in order to improve their lives. And this is a really great quote for us today. We act in accordance with the truth as we perceive and believe it to be. And this is an important quote in the Untie the Spirit course because we want to challenge some of our truths about dementia so that we can view it in a different way. Jane Verity is the founder of Spark of Life Dementia Care Australia, and which focuses on positive approaches that are based in love, understanding, and empathy when we are supporting people living with dementia. And her quote here today is about love, and she says, "Love is to look beyond disease, disability, difficult behavior, and differences into the heart and soul of the other person without judgment." This is Dr. Al Power, and I mentioned him in the introduction to the modules earlier around different ways of thinking about dementia. Dr. Power is a great advocate for people living with dementia. He wrote a couple of really great books, Dementia Beyond Drugs and Dementia Beyond Disease. And this is a really great quote. He says, "There are no bad guys in this story. All are good, caring people who try their best to provide compassionate care." And this quote reminds us that it's the system that's been broken all these years in terms of long-term care, in terms of how dementia's been viewed. And, we are all loving people who want to make a difference. There are no bad guys in this story. And of course, Dr. Bill Thomas, who is the founder of the Eden Alternative Philosophy. Great quote from him. He says, "Helping people grow is the best work on earth." How lucky are we to have jobs that are this meaningful? Sue Ellen Beatty, who was our longtime CEO at Sherbrooke, she always calls the work that we do here very sacred, important work. We are so lucky to be part of this. Tom Kitwood is a very passionate advocate for people living with dementia, did a lot of research on best practice models in terms of supporting people living with dementia, did all of his work over in Great Britain. He wrote a book called Dementia Reconsidered, and he's a mentor for almost everyone that we talk about today. But his quote here, he says, "The prime task of dementia care is to maintain the personhood in the face of failing mental powers." And so he really speaks to the importance of really getting to know each elder as a unique individual and really honoring who they are and remembering to separate the person from the disease. Teepa Snow is the founder of Positive Approach to Brain Change, and she's an occupational therapist who has become an inspirational teacher and advocate for people living with dementia. And she says here, we need to meet people where they are and understand that the task is not more important than the relationship. And this fits so well with our approach at Sherbrooke and Central Haven, because we really do believe that the relationship is the most important thing and that there should never be a task completed at the expense of a relationship. And finally, Dr. Richard Taylor, a great mentor of ours from someone we've learned so very much about living with dementia. We were introduced to Dr. Taylor through the Eden Alternative and Dr. Al Power. Dr. Taylor was 58 years old. He was working as a psychologist, and he sat in his doctor's office and learned that he had dementia, probably of the Alzheimer's type. And when he received this diagnosis, he went into a very deep depression for about 2 years. He was devastated. And during that time, he was journaling what his experiences were every day and how he was feeling. And from that experience, he realized that with this diagnosis of dementia, he had actually been given a new purpose in life. And his new purpose in life was that he was going to work to educate as much of the world as he could for as long as he was able to on what it's like to live with dementia. And he had a blog, and he had many videos recorded, and he shared his journey for a really long time into his disease, and he was very well able to express what his experience had been. We learned so very much from Dr. Taylor, and of course Dr. Taylor's journey is only his own journey. We know that every person's experience with dementia is going to be unique, but we did learn a lot from Dr. Richard Taylor. A few of Dr. Taylor's important messages are to recognize that I am fully human to my last breath. Dr. Taylor said when he first received that diagnosis of dementia, his biggest fear was that he would no longer be regarded as a whole person anymore, and that was very distressing for him. And when he would introduce himself, he would always say, "I'm Richard and I'm a whole person." And he did that not only to validate for others, but also to validate for himself. He also teaches us, please don't disable me, enable me, and also don't ever lie to me. And so really important messages as we start out this Untie the Spirit course. Okay, in society, typically, what words describe a person living with dementia? And probably a lot of things come to mind initially. We hear things out in society that people are crazy, that they're confused, that they're not all there, that they're aggressive, that they are people to fear. And, these are some of the stigmas that you hear attached to that word dementia. And, when you think of all of those things that I just described, does this paint a pretty picture of dementia? No, it doesn't. This awfulized view of dementia does not help the person who's living with dementia. It doesn't help us who are supporting people living with dementia. And so we need to paint a new picture of dementia. So as a society, we need to shift our thinking, and we need to change our behavior when it comes to our support of people living with dementia. We need to get rid of all of those negative labels and stigmas because that's not helpful. And we need to change the way that we see people and change the way that we treat people. So when we are rethinking our perspective, we need to remember these values. Every person is an individual. So every person with dementia is an individual, and this is worth repeating. We need to remember that every person has a right to their best life, and we also need to remember that we are no different than people who are living with dementia. And this is an interesting point, but it's important because if you think about it, people living with dementia are acting perfectly normal for their situation. Imagine if a stranger keeps coming in and out of your room, and then you start to notice that you can't find things. Logically, you're going to think that that person is stealing from you. This is a logical explanation. And so, again, people with dementia are just trying to make sense of their world around them, just like we all are. So we need to create a new definition of dementia. And this definition here was developed by Dr. Al Power. And he says, dementia is a shift in the way a person experiences the world around them. This is a more experiential definition. And it states that dementia is not better or worse, it's just different. It's a different experience. And this definition, when you look at it, it takes away all those negative labels and stigmas and actually helps us better understand what the person living with dementia is actually experiencing. So we have these two views. We have society's view, where it's a terrible thing to have dementia, and until we find a cure, there's nothing else we can do to make people's lives better except to medicate their distress. Or, in the Eden view, maybe there's something wrong with our model of care, and it can be different. Nancy Fox, who has written a couple of great books, a great advocate for change in long-term care. She was also the first administrator of the Eden Alternative. She has a great quote. She says, "We've created worlds where people living with dementia don't want to be, and then we medicate them to keep them there." And I'll say that one more time. We've created worlds where people living with dementia don't want to be, and then we medicate them to keep them there. Dr. Thomas has always challenged us that we are world makers. And when people move into long-term care, we often become the whole world to them. And so we need to look at the worlds we've created for elders to live in. Would it be a place where you could experience well-being? Does it have the elements of a healthy community? Can joy be experienced? Are there opportunities for meaningful relationships to thrive? Is it interesting enough? Is it vibrant enough? Does it give each person a reason to get out of bed every day? These are important questions that we need to ask ourselves about the world that we've created for elders to live in here. So this brings us to the end of Module 1 presentation. If you go back into the e-learning section, you will see that there are 2 videos that we want you to watch, and then to complete the learning checkpoint quiz, and that will complete Module 1, and you can move into Module 2. Thank you.